You also say something in your book about how making a process more difficult can sometimes make it more attractive to consumers.
So, I mean, this is known sometimes as the IKEA effect, which is that certainly Kamprad, who's the kind of owner and founder of IKEA, believes that the fact that you assemble the furniture yourself contributes to its perceived value. In other words, you've committed something of yourself to its assembly and creation. You might also argue it destigmatizes low prices. Okay, so I'll give you an example of that. There's a very big difference between cheap strawberries and pick your own strawberries. Now, pick your own strawberries are cheap, but there's a narrative as to why they're cheap, which is I put into some of the effort into the harvesting of the things, and I have to go out into a field and pick the things myself. Cheap strawberries, by contrast, may create some degree of uncertainty because you look at the market and go, well, if these strawberries were really good, why wouldn't they charge full price for them? What's wrong with this? And so quite often, sometimes you have to make things more expensive to make them trustworthy, oddly, okay? You can be too good to be true, that consumers won't necessarily trust something that's cheap unless there's a narrative around it as to where the cost savings are made. I mean, I think a lot of if you think about low-cost airlines, okay, they spent quite a lot of effort talking about what you didn't get. You don't get a meal, okay? You have to pay to check in your luggage. You don't get it originally with EasyJet. You didn't even get pre-allocated seating, okay? It was, effectively like a bus. You had to book online, you couldn't book through a travel agent. And those constraints, to some extent, were there to make it believable to the consumer that there was a legitimate form of cost saving going on. Now, if you'd launched EasyJet and you'd said, we're just as good as British Airways, but we're half the price, the untrusting consumer is going to ask, how are you doing this? Okay? Does it mean you're not servicing the engines, or the pilots are all on day release from prison or something, right? You're going to start having doubts. So interestingly, sometimes negative stories around a product can be used to offset the negatives which a consumer would tend to imagine. If IKEA had ready assembled furniture which wasn't sold in a warehouse, it was sold in a kind of posh Heels style emporium, we'd think there was something a bit iffy going on.